My name is Sophie and I'm 31 years old. My family told me not to come to New Year's Eve because you'll just make everyone uncomfortable. Those were my mother's exact words, delivered calmly over the phone, like she was talking about the weather instead of cutting me out of a family tradition we'd shared since I was a child. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just said okay and hung up. Then sat on the edge of my bed in my apartment, staring at the wall while the city outside prepared to celebrate without me. So I spent it alone in my apartment. The lights off, the TV muted, watching fireworks through the window like they belonged to another world. I told myself I was fine with it. I told myself I'd chosen this. But the truth was, it hurt more than I expected. At exactly 12:15 a.m., my phone rang. It was my brother. The moment I answered, I knew something was wrong. His breathing was uneven, sharp, and panicked, like he'd been running. His voice was shaking as he said, "Sophie, what did you do? Dad just saw the news and he's not breathing right." Those words hit me harder than any insult my family had ever thrown at me. I leaned against the kitchen counter, gripping the phone so tightly my fingers ached. "Slow down," I said. "What news? What are you talking about?" But before he could answer, my mind was already racing back through everything that had led to this moment. Because my family didn't ban me from New Year's Eve out of nowhere. This had been building for years. To them, I was the awkward one, the difficult one, the daughter who didn't fit the neat picture they liked to show the world. My parents loved stability, predictability, safe careers, safe lives. My brother followed the script perfectly. Corporate job, marriage by 30, suburban house. Meanwhile, I quit a good job at 26 to start my own company with nothing but savings and a stubborn belief that I could build something bigger. That was when the comments started. "You're being unrealistic. You think you're smarter than everyone else. You make people uncomfortable with your ideas." Family dinners became interrogations. Every holiday, someone would ask when I planned to get a real job again. When I stopped showing up as often, they said I was acting superior. When I did show up, they said my presence changed the mood. By the time New Year's Eve came around this year, the unspoken resentment finally turned into a clear message. Don't come. So I didn't. I toasted midnight with a glass of cheap champagne, standing barefoot on my kitchen floor. No hugs, no countdown. Just distant cheers drifting in through the glass. I remember laughing quietly to myself, not because it was funny, but because it was absurd how lonely success could feel, when the people you wanted to share it with refused to see it. Then my phone rang. "Sophie," my brother repeated, his voice cracking. Dad was watching TV. There was a business segment. "Your company name came up. They said something about a valuation." He went pale. Mom started yelling. And then Dad just sat down. "He's breathing, but not right. He keeps asking if it's really you." I closed my eyes. Of course it was the news. I hadn't told my family what was happening with my company. Not because I was hiding it, but because every time I tried to explain, they dismissed it as another phase, another unrealistic dream. So when investors started circling, when growth exploded, when numbers stopped being theoretical and became undeniable, I kept quiet. I didn't need their approval anymore. Or at least that's what I told myself. "What did the news say?" I asked. There was a pause. "They said the founder, you, just became a billionaire overnight after the acquisition announcement." The word hung in the air between us. Billionaire. I slid down onto the kitchen floor, my back against the cabinet. Not because I was shocked. It had been a surreal day already, but because of the timing. Because while my family was clinking glasses without me, celebrating a new year I wasn't invited into, the world had just announced something that would force them to see me differently whether they wanted to or not. "I never meant for Dad to find out like that," I said quietly. "That's not the point," my brother snapped, then softened. "Mom is freaking out. She keeps saying this can't be real. Dad's asking why you never told us. And now he can't catch his breath, Soph. I don't know what to do." I stood up, suddenly steady. "Call an ambulance," I said. "Now don't argue, do it." As he hung up, I looked around my apartment, the same place my family imagined as proof that I'd failed, that I was struggling, that I was somehow behind in life. They didn't see the sleepless nights, the risks, the sacrifices. They didn't see the version of me who kept going even when no one clapped. I grabbed my coat, my keys, and my phone. They didn't want me at New Year's Eve because I made everyone uncomfortable. But now, whether they liked it or not, my absence and my success had just become impossible to ignore. And as I stepped into the cold night air, heading toward the family that had pushed me away, I knew this was only the beginning of what they were about to learn. By the time I reached my parents' house, the street was crowded with flashing lights, red and blue washing over familiar walls like a warning. An ambulance sat in the driveway, its back doors open, and my mother's voice cut through the cold air before I even stepped out of the car. She was crying, half sobbing, half arguing with a paramedic, repeating my name like it was both a question and an accusation. Inside, my father sat on the couch with an oxygen mask pressed to his face, his chest rising unevenly, his eyes wide and unfocused. When he saw me, he tried to sit up, panic flaring again, and one of the paramedics gently pushed him back down, telling him to breathe slowly. My brother stood off to the side, pale and shaken, and for a brief moment no one spoke, as if my presence itself had sucked the air out of the room. Dad's eyes never left me. Even with the mask on, his voice was rough when he managed to speak. "Is it true?" he asked. "What I saw on the news." "Sophie, is that really you?" The room felt too small, the years of silence and judgment pressing in from every corner. I nodded once. "Yes," I said. "It's true." My mother's crying stopped abruptly, replaced by a sharp inhale. "A billionaire?" she whispered, like the word might break something if said too loudly. I didn't correct her, didn't soften it, didn't dress it up. "Overnight," I said, because that was what the headline had said. Even though we all knew it was the result of years, no one in this room had bothered to ask about. The paramedics exchanged a look, relieved that my father's breathing was starting to steady. They said it was a panic attack triggered by shock, and that he'd be okay but needed rest. When they left, the house fell into an uneasy quiet. My mother motioned for me to sit, then stopped herself, as if unsure whether she was allowed to make that gesture anymore. Dad pulled the mask away, his voice calmer now but heavy. "Why didn't you tell us?" he asked. Not angrily, confused, hurt. I felt something inside me tighten. "I tried," I said. "For years. Every time I talked about my work, you told me it wasn't real, that it made people uncomfortable, that I was embarrassing myself." My brother looked down at the floor. My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. Dad swallowed. "We were worried about you," he said. I let out a short, humorless laugh. "You banned me from New Year's Eve," I replied. "You told me not to come because I'd make everyone uncomfortable." I spent it alone in my apartment. And at exactly 12:15 a.m., my brother called because you saw the news and couldn't breathe. The words hung there, undeniable. My mother sank into a chair, covering her face. "We didn't know," she said. "We didn't understand." I stepped closer. "That's the problem," I said softly. "You never tried to." Dad looked older than I remembered, smaller somehow. "I thought success looked a certain way," he admitted. "I thought if you weren't following the path we knew, you were lost." He paused, eyes glistening. I was wrong. Hearing that didn't erase the years of distance, but it cracked something open. Not relief. Not forgiveness, just honesty finally. They asked questions then. Real ones about the company, about how it started, about how close I'd come to failing. For the first time, no one interrupted me with advice or warnings. They listened. And as I spoke, I realized something important. Their approval didn't feel as powerful as I'd imagined. I didn't feel completed by it. I felt unchanged. Still me. Still the woman they'd told to stay away. When I stood to leave, my mother reached for my hand. "Next year," she said quietly, "please come." I met her eyes. "We'll see," I replied, because invitations mean nothing if they're only extended after the world decides you're worth something. Outside, the fireworks debris still littered the street. Yesterday's celebration already forgotten. I sat in my car for a moment before starting the engine, breathing in the silence. I thought about how easily people dismiss what they don't understand, how quickly they rewrite history once success becomes visible, how lonely it can be to grow beyond the version of yourself others are comfortable with. I drove home as the sun began to rise. The new year unfolding whether anyone approved or not. And if there's one thing my story proves, it's this. Being excluded doesn't mean you're wrong. Being doubted doesn't mean you'll fail. And sometimes the people who tell you that you make everyone uncomfortable are just uncomfortable with the idea that you might outgrow them.